To start our Thursday. Anybody want to match the energy level? Who has got something going good in their world? Anybody? I am super excited about my new sign here, courtesy of Peak Graphics. Actually, got the sign online and had these guys mount it up for me, and really, really excited about the way it looks on camera. So that is what I am grateful for today. What is bringing joy to your world, Margareta?
Morning. Hold on, I think hold on. Can you hear me okay or?
It's a little muffled.
Better, right?
Yep, that's better.
Sorry. Well, I like to listen to you loudly, so I have you on a speaker. But it's a problem if I don't want to chime in. I'm grateful for, and I'm a little bit confused about this too because it's a different market, but I got an offer for like, let's say, several. I don't want to phrase it because it's an active listing. I got an offer that's like very good offer, and I'm like, well, do I need to ask for highest and best or just take that? And I'm just thinking, with this market, I'm just going to take it instead of mess with it. But I'm very thrilled about it, so that's a good thing.
Well, I've got some strong thoughts just on the conversation that you just had regarding how to handle those situations. Because I think sometimes agents aren't kind of aware of how different you could handle each one of these situations. And what I mean by that is, if we want highest and best, great, that's one strategy. If we want to just take the offer that we really like, that's another strategy. But there's a strategy in between where we can only go back to individual offers, right? As long as we are having dialogue with our sellers about, hey, this is what I got, right? There's somebody else that's pretty good. And if they could change this term and that term, it'd be better than what I got in hand. But we risk this great offer that's on the table. So as long as we're educating our seller, right, then maybe we just go back to one offer, or maybe we go back to two, or maybe we, if there's 13 offers on the table, you don't have to get back to everybody. You could just go to a few of them and say, hey, look, here's the deal. This is what I got on the table. I've got authorization from my seller to come back to you and ask if you can do X and Y. And if you can do X and Y, we'd like to move forward with you. So we can break it up a little bit and get a little bit creative if you've got the right offers, depending on what you got in front of you. Lauren, I see your hand up.
I hate when people send out highest and best when they have 0 or 1 offer. I think highest and best should be reserved when you have multiple offers and you know that potentially there are more coming in. Or you have nothing yet and your listing goes on, you put highest and best to the day. Like, I get a little bit the psychology behind it, but then you see those properties sitting weeks beyond that day still on the market and they still have that verbiage sitting in there, right? Like, obviously those properties weren't the ones generating all the interest. And I think this built up a lot more, that like the COVID year and the year after where we were getting a lot and it didn't matter what the property was, you had a handful of offers. And it plays into like people get stuck in sort of one mentality and not molding to the actual field that we're in right now, right? And what it's like. And so, my opinion, unless you know more than one, why you call it highest best? You work with the person that wants to work with you. Otherwise, you kind of risk annoying them and them leaving.
Yeah,
And I think, Lauren, you touched that.
Margaret, I want to just get some
ahead.
clarification. Did I misunderstand? Do you just have the one offer and you're worried about going highest and best? Is that what you meant?
This is the first offer. I know there's supposed to be more coming, but I haven't seen them. That's why I'm like, I feel like this is a very good offer. This is, I don't think he's going to get really much better than this. And I have to say, on my other listing, which is a different price point, we had an offer, but it was like so much under what we were asking at that point. And they're like, when we actually did lower it because they're very eager to sell the house because they're in another house. But like we went back to this buyer and they're like, no, we're done. So like, and I've heard this from other agents in this market, buyers are very fidgety. It's almost like, oh, you didn't take my offer, screw you. We're not taking it anymore. So I feel like you have to respect a good offer. And I think that's what makes a good agent, because if you know it's a good offer, you're not going to get much more. I mean, there could be some weird outlier, but that just doesn't happen. Not in our market. So I feel like I just want to make sure I'm saying the right thing to my seller, that I'm recommending the right thing. But by my gut, that's kind of where I'm going with it. I feel like the market has shifted, and you got to respect that first buyer. I mean, for us, it's actually a second buyer, but still.
No, I think you're hitting this right the nail on the head here. I think you got to be careful when you've got a good one, that you come back with the highest and best, or hey, you know what, we just like this or that or whatever. Because I've been on the buy side where the buyer goes, screw these people. Like, we gave them a really, really good offer. Like, what are they going to do next? That they're not going to be happy about. So yeah, I think you're thinking that part through correctly. Where I think you can get, what is it? One in the hand is better than two in the bush, something along that. I don't know. I mess those up all the time, but I think it's something like that. And we got to be careful. So
thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Yes. Anybody else have any just thoughts on multiple offer or these scenarios?
Steve, I'll add one thing here. I think the discussion with the seller is key. You might have a seller that's willing to gamble and feels like his house is worth more and he should have got more, or she should have got more. And it's a discussion. Hey, here's what I'm going to do, or here's what we can do. We can take this offer and be happy with it, or we can go to the market and pretend like we've got a bunch of offers and try to get these people up a couple thousand. Here's the good news. I might be able to get you a couple thousand. Here's the bad news. These people might say, screw you and walk away. What do you want to do? Right. So it sounds like Margaret is having that conversation, but as the agent, you should never be, making that decision without having a discussion. And you might even have 3 or 4 offers and just say, oh, I'm going to call for highest and best, and tell your seller, hey, we're calling for highest and best. So they might not want to do that. Right. Because I know plenty of buyers, once you call highest and best, it's like, oh, this is going to bidding war, I'm out. Right. And I've had, I don't know, probably I could have 2 to 3 people back out overnight. I just had a listing down here in Florida. I had 3 offers. And all of a sudden they didn't like the size of the closets after making an offer the next day. So now I'm down to 2 offers, right? And so luckily I did my negotiating when I had 3 and I felt a little better and we got over asking on it. But just always communication with the seller, letting them make the decision, but you coming in as the agent, being the expert and having the crystal ball, but here's what I think is going to happen. And go from there.
I couldn't agree with Adam more on that statement he just made about losing them overnight. I'm not a fan of these emotional buyers. I'm not a fan of the firecracker, let's make it happen right now, because that's how you're losing them. When you're like, I gotta know in an hour. It's an emotional thing at that point, and those are the ones that are walking away.
Yeah, I'm in agreement here as well. And I think the classic example of this is like, well, if you don't take our offer, it's the buyer that's trying to get the offer accepted prior to the deadline or prior to the open house on Sunday. If you don't take our offer, then we're not going to be around on Sunday. So you're telling me your buyers love this house so much that 2 days from now they're not going to love it? That's just screaming to me that they were going to back out at inspections, or they weren't going to sign the contract, or something was going to go wrong. Like, this is a home purchase, not sneakers. You don't love it on Friday and, hey, yeah, we're not going to be doing this on Sunday. So I just would be weary. I think this is a very good point of the buyer that's like, got to have it now.
And then, Steve, I have an offer in, to Margaretta's point, I have an offer in, and the agent texted me last night and said, we'll be making a choice on May 5th. I'm like, okay, like, let's just, and at that point, I can't have my buyers tied up in that one offer either. You come to that point because they got a B and a C, to what you said. If they love it that much and we're strong as heck, that's one thing. But that's insulting as well. Like, what the hell? You don't want to work with me? Counter,
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I will say to my previous comment about, the buyer that's, you're here on Friday but you're not here on Sunday is the following example. Is you've got a buyer that is really interested in two properties. So my strategy on this has always been, hey, we got to pick one and we got to go for it. Right? So we're going to go after property A and we're going to tell that listing agent, hey, I know you got a deadline, but they really like another property as well. This is their first. This is a great offer we're putting on the table, but legitimately they're also interested in, 123 Main Street and they have a deadline as well. And we've got to get one of these two. So, like, we'd love to put this deal together, but there's a potential that we won't be around on Sunday. And just having a little bit more detail about what the heck is going on when you're the buyer's agent with the listing agent, so the listing agent understands, why are you putting this pressure on me? Right? Not just, hey, we're not going to be here around on Sunday, but hey, here's the situation that we're in. Right? This is the communication stuff that we're talking about. Have the conversation. Right? I hate to do this to you, but this is legit where we're at. And they've got to, they're trying to get their kids into this school district. And these are the two houses that they like, and they both have deadlines. So we like yours. We're coming strong. We'd love to put this deal together. There's a lot here. Adam, I see you're unmuted again.
Yeah, so Chris reminded me of something, and you reminded me of something as well. So obviously I'm the seller in a lot of cases, so I can make the decision for myself, but I would say more than half the time I am purposely waiting overnight and using, like, typically you get offers and 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you're trying to make a decision. I will purposely say, hey, I'm going to call the lender in the morning. I always want to talk to the lender and I want them to sleep on it. I've probably never actually discussed this with anyone, but I do that a lot because I've had the buyer that backs out the next day and it's frustrating. So that's just a thing that I do, and you can consider doing it. Is, when you get that offer, you know, um, just consider, waiting overnight and letting them sleep on it because things can change. The other thing in Margaretta's case, and Steve, you trained me on this, whatever it was, 9 years ago, is just because you have one offer doesn't mean to accept it and doesn't mean to do any less due diligence. I think it's easy to say, oh, we have this one offer, let's take it. I'm still calling the lender. I'm still calling the agent. I'm still understanding, are they a first time home buyer or have they owned a house before? What does the situation look like? Because I think there's a tendency to say, well, hey, seller, this is the only thing we got. Let's move forward. And that can turn into, you know, uh, whether it's inspection issues or lending issues, and now you're back on market, might have even been a better situation than just not accept that one at all. So just being cognizant of that, and not just saying this is the only one we have right now, so let's just take it.
That's desperation. It's like, even when we lose something, what you've always said, you get like a 5-minute funeral and move on. You don't want to go out of desperation. With that said, the last thing I'll say is 73 new properties today alone on MLS in Hampden County alone. So, like, I cannot believe how many came up to my hot feed this morning.
What status, Chris?
New.
New. Okay.
Oh, single family.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's got
because
the
I know
new
you
banner.
I know you the other day had put something out about BOM. You were like shocked by the BOM.
Oh
One
yeah,
thing,
that was another one. Yeah.
one thing I hope you guys are hearing when you're listening to Chris talk and the experience that she's got here is she knows the damn market. If you don't know your market, you're doing your clients a disservice. She's checking every day. She knows BOMs in her market. She knows new listings in her market, right? This is the difference between that proactive agent and the reactive agent that just sets them up on listing alerts and maybe sends a couple of text messages. This is the business. This is how you professionally do it. You know your markets, you know the inventory, you're out, you're looking at the inventory, right? And if you don't have people to show houses to, you're on the phone making contacts, you're going to events, you're throwing parties to try and get yourself into conversations. One of the things that I'm really passionate about right now is making sure that we are putting agents on a path to make this a career. It is so difficult to get started, right? And leads can help, but we can't just work leads forever. You've got to do all these other little intangible things to turn this into a career. Because when you can do it for a career, it's an awesome one. If you love having these conversations and love interacting with people, it's a great business to be in, regardless of the market. You're going to have up and down years, sure, but you just want to enjoy the journey, putting deals together, negotiating. Um, if you don't know those stats, you should know those stats. We do have Legal Thursday here. Caitlin, we've had you muted this
Hey,
whole
everybody.
time. You want to add some value to this phenomenal group of pros?
I would love to. I just want to know, did everybody survive the end of the month yesterday? Because I know mine carried into this morning, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know.
So
I think as agents, the end of the month is an exciting time, and I think it's like dread for attorneys.
it is,
Yeah.
it's like it's like D-Day for us. I
Yeah.
guess it comes up and you just see it coming at you. You're staring at it right in the face. It was a wild one yesterday, actually. So I actually have a really kind of feeds into what you're talking about with offers. I had a closing yesterday. They are not new home buyers. They are, selling a house and they're buying this one. They don't need to sell their house in order to buy this one. So they're doing the purchase first. Sale is going to happen after the fact. So they gave a use and occupancy. And the reason they gave the sellers a use and occupancy to remain in the property after closing is because there were 7 other offers that the seller was still actively looking at. Like they didn't say, we're at our best 2. Where are they? They're like, well, there's open 7 offers that we're just looking at. And everyone had a little different thing. Everyone's got a little different contingency. Each deal's a little different. Each recipe's a little different. And my guys were so desperate to get into this house because they loved it, not because they were desperate and needed a place to go, that they basically said, we'll give you the UNO. You don't have to pay us to stay there for those 2 months. Like, we'll cover the mortgage. You can just stay. And then when we got to closing yesterday, they were like, okay, so when we do our walkthrough, what's our leverage if there's a hole in the wall? And I said, we have a signed document. And they were like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Like, with the purchase and sale, we had a deposit. That's you told us that's our leverage. And if something comes up and we swap and we do this, they're like, what do we do if they've put a hole in the wall since the time we did our walkthrough in the next 2 months? And I said, we have a signed agreement that you can take to court. I'm like, you have no leverage. There's no funds that you can hold. There's nothing you can hold back from them. We can't hold their proceeds. You've opted to do this. And it was a move, like you just said, it was a move out of desperation. They wanted this house. They loved this house. And they decided to go against everybody's recommendations because they wanted to have the best offer. But in doing so, they got picked. But they also kind of opened themselves up to a lot of things that we tried to tell them no, but they just were absolutely in love with this house. So even though we had a full conversation about use and occupancy, what it means, how, who's going to be responsible for what, we still had to go through the entire thing again yesterday because it felt like they were being blindsided. They're like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean there's no leverage? And I'm like, there's no charge. The only thing we have here is a signed document. I can't go in there if there's a hole in the wall and break their knees until they pay to put the, repairs together. It may end up that you have to take them to court or small claims court. But desperation makes people do strange things on a buy side or on a sell side. Desperation can really switch up a deal very quickly.
And I just want to add some color to this. If they had a little bit more leverage, I just want everybody to understand, they could have added something in there, right? We could have put some money aside. We could have, right? But because they're in this position where they're trying to win, you don't have leverage. So now you got to go, all right, yep, we'll let you live there and we hope that you don't destroy it. And they might not do anything wrong, right? Like they might just move out and everything will be fine. But
exactly,
maybe not.
And generally speaking, with a use and occupancy, if we're not collecting something that you're being paid, for the time that you're out of the property, I like to hold something in escrow. I'd like to, even if we're going to be giving it back at the end of the escrow period, I'd like to hold $5,000 to $10,000 for any damages that you might do, because life happens. Things happen. You may go into a use and occupancy if you're the occupying party with the best of intentions. You never go in there thinking you're going to punch holes in the walls or some terrible accident will happen, but life happens and it's best to be prepared for it. But when you have a buyer in this situation, like I did, who is absolutely desperate and the seller is just lording it over them, I've got these 7 offers. I want to live in this house for the next 2 months rent free. And I don't want to put anything into escrow. I want to be free and clear. And they agreed to it. Our hands are tied. I can do a lot on the legal side, but if my clients don't agree to let me do it, I have to abide by their wishes. It's kind of like Adam was saying, you have to go to your seller and get their approval. You have to ask them first before you go forward and tell the buyer you're doing best in finals and whatnot. But it's very similar on my end. I can protect you to the best of my ability, and I can tell my clients what they need to be protected. But if they are in a desperate situation and they want this house and this is what we want to do, then I'm in a tough spot and I have to go with what they want. But that means that at the last minute, at the 11th hour when we're at closing, we can't change up the deal, and I can't readjust it to make sure they're more protected and much more comfortable with what they signed up for. Because now that they've got that offer, that desperation feeling of like, I'm not going to get this house. They've now won the house and we're at closing. They're like, what if my house messes up? What do I do? So it's a little, that desperation switches to panic real quick.
Amber.
So I have an interesting one. So my buyer went under contract on this condo. Sellers had already had an offer fall through because the buyer's financing didn't work. Sorry, I'm walking just in case I'm breathing heavy. What ended up happening was their deal had originally fall through. So they accepted our offer contingent upon them finding housing. So we had given them originally 14 to 21 days, something like that. Well, they still haven't found anything. They put offers in. The market has changed a lot in the past month or so. So now they came back to us and said, can we have another 21 days? My buyer was okay with that, only because now for her to get under contract on something else is going to cost her more money because the market has changed. So then they came back to us and said, we're having a hard time because number one, you don't have mortgage commitment yet, which is due on the 7th. Can we get that sooner? Supposedly we can get that this week. I'm following up today. And then they wanted inspections done. The reason we didn't do inspections was because they didn't have anything under contract. And my client just doesn't have that extra cash. So I said, hey, how do you feel about, talk to your seller. I'm going to talk to my buyer because I know my buyer would probably be okay with it. She just doesn't have money to just throw away if you guys aren't under contract. So we had an addendum put together for inspections that if for some reason the seller didn't get under contract, that they would give my clients money back for inspections. So I booked the inspections. The radon lady ends up calling and she's like, well, we're not paying for radon, but that's not what the addendum says. It says you're going to pay for inspections. So we're going to deal with that. I let them know. But now she's like, we don't know. So my fear is they know that the market's gone up. So they're going to try. They're trying to get under contract, but at the same time,
not try real hard.
That's what I feel like. I feel like, if they're not trying hard enough and now they're like, oh, the market's gone up, we could probably get more for this, even though I don't think it would appraise at this point because for past sales. So, we've given them those 21 days. I'm trying to get mortgage commitment this week instead of next week so that their offer is stronger. But they keep coming back with more stuff. And I'm like, my buyer has been so good about it. She lives with her son, but it's like, at this point, I feel like, well, now you're going to pay for it because the bank, I told you that last week or whatever, the bank's already done appraisal. The attorneys, you, Kaylin, already have title going.
Yeah.
They need, I feel like they need to reimburse more than if they can't get anything under contract. I don't know if there's anything else we can do.
It's a tough scenario when you get into this because you're still, like you say, you're looking at a position where, the sellers are kind of in a position of power here. They've got a contingency and, they can cut the deal if they don't find suitable housing. And all it takes is them not looking really hard to not find suitable housing. Because we can ask, you know what I mean? Like we can always push and we can always ask. It does not mean that we're always going to get it. And that's like the worst answer ever that I hate giving people. It's like, I can ask and, it doesn't feel like there's a lot that I can do there. Let me turn this around. Let me turn around on a realtor side, Steve.
Yeah. It's leverage again, like it is in every negotiation, right? So what if we have the leverage, if the buyer had the leverage, if this property was sitting for a little bit, I think the strategy would have been, hey, look, we will give you 30 days upfront to find suitable housing. We're willing to then extend for another 30 days if you guys are unable. But the 60 days is a drop dead. And we want to know what your contingency plan is. Where are you going, right? So we have a 30-day. We'll give an extension for another 30, but after that, we're closing, right? So if you have the leverage. Now, if the seller's like, we're not willing to sign up for that. Well, what if we gave you 10 grand more? What if we raise their deposit? What if we, right? We got to sweeten the deal if we want to have that drop dead language in there. So, and every seller's not going to be able to do it. Some sellers are just like, we have no other place to go. We're not living with the in-laws. We're not renting a place. Like, we can't have a drop dead date. But, you know, typically these are the types of things you want to try and feel out. Is there a price? Is there something else we could help with? You know, Chris says she will help that. Yeah, Amber too. So go help them find the suitable housing, right? If you know what they're looking for, is obviously being really proactive. Help that buyer's agent out. Make sure they really know what they're looking for. But yeah, these are all the little conversations that you can have when you're structuring the deal. You know, do you have?
We did that at the beginning, Steve. We offered, you know, because we were already kind of behind the 8 ball and they still hadn't found anything, and their original housing had fallen through. We offered, you know, 30, we hated doing it, but 30 days for them to, you know, lease back. So, you know, I feel like we've kind of done everything we can, but now I feel like
they're trying to change the deal.
they're trying to change it either for whatever reason, because they don't think anything's out there, because, you know, they can't get anything under contract. And I get it, like, it's hard. But we're under agreement. We're through purchase and sale. Now we're going to do inspections. If they can't find anything after this, I feel like they're just not trying that hard.
Yeah.
And that might be it. Is she in love with it?
You know, the problem is the prices have changed quite significantly.
Yeah.
So she is, and I think that after this, I think she would back out. And I don't really want her to, because I think it's a good spot for her. But I'm
you
still.
Also can't really blame her for.
No,
You know,
I can't. So
how much more can she give?
Right. So I'm continuing to look myself, you know, because if something happens, if we get close to that date, I want her back out looking without being, you know, first-time home buyers, they get discouraged. So we're trying not to let that happen.
A couple other things that, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, what Amber's saying is so true. It does suck that the sellers do hold it. Like my stepdaughter in North Carolina, she just lost one in North Carolina because they just decided halfway through, we're not going to sell anymore. Like, what is it that we don't have any, right?
It's possession, man. It's possession.
Yeah,
Who's in that property?
Yeah, you got
that
nothing.
Sucks.
Yeah. Just a couple other things that were just coming to mind is making sure if we're going to do extensions that we do have mutual agreement that, yeah, we'll give you another 30 days, but we can also pull out and go buy another house, right? So make sure we've got language like that allows, like, you know, Amber's starting to look for other properties. If she can go find something else that we can get out of this deal, you know, when we do an extension, hey, we can get out. And then the other thing we got to be careful about is rate locks. You know, I don't know if these people have a mortgage, but man, rates just seem to be all over the place. And that's great that these guys are taking their time to find suitable housing, but how long is my rate lock good for? What are extension terms? So those are some other things to be thinking out into the future on. So this is the wonderful world of real estate. You know, why we do this call, we just can't, no deal is ever done, right? So our job as agents is to be trying to, you know, predict into the future all these little scenarios that could come up, structure the best possible deal we can at the time, depending on the leverage that we have for our clients. You know, and when you're struggling with these, please ask. The worst thing is letting deals die when you haven't had a few different conversations or brought it to this call to say, hey, have you tried this, or this? Because there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. All right, we are over. Awesome Thursday. Appreciate you all. Let's do it again tomorrow and wrap up the week strong. All right, take care. Have a great Thursday.
Hope to see everyone at the launch today over on HP Algren Drive. Did Steve already hang up?
I'm still here. I don't know how I got muted, but yeah. We are launch party at 11, Herbert P. Almgren Drive in Agawam. We're officially launching our co-work space. We're really, really excited. Hopefully going to generate some deals for the agents that are coming in here. So take care, guys. Let's do it again tomorrow.